Chapter 1. The Perfect Life That Wasn't. From the outside, Elias Blackwood's life looked flawless. The glass walls of Blackwood Architectural Group reflected the morning sun across downtown like a monument to success, and Elias often stood in his office watching the city wake beneath him. 32 floors above the streets, he had built more than skyscrapers. He had built certainty. At 42, Elias was respected, wealthy, and admired in professional circles. His firm designed luxury commercial complexes across multiple states. Industry magazines called him visionary. Investors trusted him blindly. Employees spoke his name with loyalty rather than fear. Everything he touched seemed carefully planned, including his family. A framed photograph sat neatly on the edge of his desk. Vanessa smiling beside him at a charity gala, her hand resting lightly on his chest, elegance effortless in her posture. Beside them stood Caleb, 12 years old, grinning awkwardly in a suit slightly too big for him. Elias glanced at the photo before turning back to the blueprints spread across his desk. "Mr. Blackwood?" his assistant called through the intercom. "Marcus is here." Elias smiled faintly. "Send him in." Marcus Hale entered without knocking, as he always did. Tall, confident, carrying the relaxed arrogance of someone who believed he belonged anywhere. "Still working before 9? Marcus laughed, dropping into the chair opposite him. "You're going to make the rest of us look lazy." Elias leaned back. "Deadlines don't respect sleep." Marcus grinned. "That's why you're the genius, and I handle clients." They had worked together for nearly 10 years. Marcus wasn't just a partner. He was family. Best man at Elias's wedding. Caleb's unofficial uncle. The man Elias trusted to represent the company when he couldn't. Trust had never felt dangerous before. They discussed contracts, upcoming bids, and a luxury waterfront project worth millions. The conversation flowed easily, familiar, and efficient. Nothing felt wrong. Not yet. That evening, Elias arrived home later than usual. Their house sat in a quiet, gated neighborhood, warm lights glowing through tall windows. Vanessa had always insisted a home should feel welcoming before anyone even stepped inside. The smell of roasted garlic and herbs greeted him as he entered. "You're late," Vanessa called from the kitchen, though her tone carried more habit than complaint. Elias loosened his tie. Client meeting ran long. She appeared moments later, effortlessly beautiful in casual elegance, wiping her hands on a towel before kissing his cheek. "How was your day?" she asked. "Productive. Marcus called earlier," she added casually. "Something about tomorrow's investor presentation." Elias nodded without thinking. Marcus called often. Work followed them home constantly. Normal. Everything felt normal. Dinner passed peacefully. Caleb talked excitedly about school robotics competitions while Vanessa laughed at his exaggerated storytelling. Elias listened, occasionally correcting homework details or teasing his son. It was an ordinary evening, the kind people later wished they could return to. After dinner, Elias retreated briefly to his study while Vanessa cleaned up downstairs. A few minutes later, Caleb appeared at the doorway. "Dad," Elias looked up from his laptop. "Yeah, buddy." Caleb hesitated, shifting his weight. "Can I ask something weird?" Elias smiled. Weird questions are usually the important ones. Caleb stepped inside and lowered his voice. "Is Uncle Marcus moving in with us?" Elias blinked. "What?" Caleb frowned. "I just thought because Mom said the apartment was almost ready." A slow chill crept through Elias's chest. "What apartment?" Caleb immediately looked uncertain. "Maybe I heard wrong." Elias closed his laptop gently. "Caleb, what did you hear?" The boy hesitated, clearly realizing he might have said something he wasn't supposed to. "I was playing games on Mom's tablet yesterday," Caleb admitted. "A message popped up from Aunt Lydia, Vanessa's sister." "And?" Elias asked quietly. Caleb swallowed. "She said, the love nest is ready. Marcus will love it. Soon Elias won't even know what happened." The room seemed to shrink. Elias kept his expression calm, though his heartbeat pounded violently. "Are you sure you read that correctly?" Caleb nodded slowly. "I didn't mean to snoop." "You didn't," Elias said gently. "You did nothing wrong." He forced a reassuring smile. "Go finish your homework, okay?" Caleb left, unaware that he had just dismantled his father's world. Elias sat motionless for several minutes. Logic immediately fought emotion. There had to be an explanation, a misunderstanding, a joke taken out of context. Yet something small and forgotten resurfaced. Late-night meetings Vanessa claimed were social events. Marcus canceling plans unexpectedly. Whispered phone calls ending when Elias entered rooms. Tiny inconsistencies, individually meaningless. Together, unsettling. Elias stood and walked silently toward the living room. Vanessa's tablet rested on the coffee table exactly where Caleb had mentioned. He hesitated. Invading privacy felt wrong, but so did ignorance. He picked it up. The device unlocked instantly. Messages remained open. His eyes scanned quickly until he found Lydia's name. And then he saw it. The place is perfect. Marcus checked it yesterday. She deserves happiness after everything. Once Elias is out of the company, you two can finally live freely. Elias's breathing slowed unnaturally. Scrolling further, his fingers grew colder. Photos appeared. An upscale apartment. Wine glasses. Furniture deliveries. A bedroom prepared with deliberate intimacy. His stomach tightened. Still, messages could lie. People exaggerated. He needed certainty. Professional instinct took over, calm, analytical, precise. Elias accessed the home security system through his phone. Cameras covered entrances, garage access, and shared office storage linked to company equipment. One recording caught his attention. 3 nights earlier. Timestamp, 10:42 p.m. He opened it. Vanessa entered the garage. Marcus followed seconds later. They laughed softly, unaware of the camera's silent observation. Marcus pulled her close. The kiss was unmistakable, unhurried, familiar, practiced. Elias watched without blinking as Vanessa leaned into him. Not hesitant, not conflicted, but comfortable. Then Marcus spoke, audio faint but clear enough. Soon the board meeting happens, he said. Once Elias signs authority transfers, he's finished. Vanessa laughed quietly. He'll never see it coming. The video ended. Silence filled the study. Marriage, friendship, partnership, every foundation of Elias Blackwood's life fractured in a single moment. He did not shout. He did not cry. Instead, Elias set the tablet down carefully and folded his hands together. Emotion drained away, replaced by something colder, sharper. Calculation. The betrayal awakened something cold inside him. Chapter 2. Silent retaliation begins. Elias Blackwood did not sleep that night. He lay beside Vanessa, staring into the darkness while her breathing remained slow and peaceful next to him. Every few minutes, she shifted slightly, unaware that the man beside her now saw a stranger where his wife once existed. The ceiling above him blurred as memory replayed the security footage again and again. The kiss. The laughter. He'll never see it coming. Elias felt no rage. That surprised him most. There was no shouting impulse, no desire to wake her and demand explanations. Anger required emotion, and emotion required attachment. Something inside him had already detached. By morning, Elias had made his decision. He rose quietly at 5, dressed in silence, and left the bedroom without waking her. Downstairs, he brewed coffee exactly as he always did. Routine mattered. Routine kept suspicion away. Caleb entered the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "You're up early," Elias said gently. "Math test," Caleb muttered. Elias placed breakfast in front of him and sat across the table. His son studied his face carefully. "Are you mad about what I told you?" Elias shook his head immediately. "No. You helped me understand something important." Caleb nodded, reassured. Elias reached across the table. "Things might change soon, okay? But whatever happens, I've got you." Caleb smiled faintly. "I know." That single sentence strengthened Elias's resolve more than anything else. At 9 o'clock sharp, Elias walked into his downtown law firm. Margaret Hensley, his attorney for nearly 15 years, looked surprised to see him without an appointment. "Elias? Everything all right?" He closed the office door behind him. "I need divorce papers filed," he said calmly. Margaret blinked. "That's sudden. I want discretion," Elias continued. "Immediate filing. No prior notice." Her professional instincts activated instantly. Are we expecting conflict? Yes. He slid a folder across her desk containing financial statements, property ownership documents, and personal asset summaries already organized. Margaret flipped through them slowly before looking up again. You prepared this overnight? Elias met her gaze evenly. I prefer efficiency. She studied him carefully. Do you want mediation? No, asset division. Separate everything legally traceable to me. Freeze joint liquidity once filing begins. Margaret leaned back. Elias, what happened? He paused only briefly. My wife betrayed me. The simplicity of the statement ended further questions. Margaret nodded. I'll start immediately. From the law office, Elias drove straight to Blackwood Architectural Group. Employees greeted him as usual. Morning, Mr. Blackwood. Good morning. Nothing in his expression betrayed the quiet dismantling already underway. Inside his executive office, he contacted his private banker. I need restructuring completed today, Elias said. Personal or corporate? Personal first. For the next 3 hours, Elias executed transfers with surgical precision. Investment portfolios moved into protected trusts. Savings accounts separated. Property titles reassigned. Joint access permissions revoked one by one. Every financial bridge Vanessa could cross quietly disappeared. When the banker hesitated over authorization speed, Elias simply said, security concern. That was enough. At noon, he opened another account dashboard. 6 credit cards appeared under family extensions. Vanessa's personal card, her parents, her younger brothers, and Lydia's, Vanessa's sister, the same sister who helped prepare the apartment. Elias stared at Lydia's account longest. He remembered recommending her for employment when she struggled financially years ago. He had placed her inside his company administration department himself. Trusted her, helped her build stability. His finger moved without hesitation. Cancel card. Confirmation message appeared. He repeated the process 5 more times. Each cancellation finalized instantly. Financial lifelines severed. Later that afternoon, Elias summoned human resources. Prepare termination paperwork for Lydia Carter, he instructed. The HR manager looked confused. Ms. Carter? Senior Operations Coordinator. Yes. Reason listed? Elias didn't hesitate. Breach of executive trust. The manager nodded cautiously. Effective immediately? Immediately. Minutes later, Lydia stormed into his office without knocking. Her face flushed with anger. What is this? She demanded, waving printed documents. HR says I'm fired. Elias looked up slowly. Professional. Calm. Controlled. You are. Her disbelief turned sharp. You can't just do that. I can. I've worked here 6 years, and your position depended on executive confidence. Her voice dropped. Vanessa knows about this. Elias folded his hands. This decision does not involve my wife. Lydia stared at him, suspicion flickering behind her anger. What did I do? Elias held her gaze steadily. You know exactly what you did. For a brief second, fear crossed her face. Then defensiveness returned. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You'll regret this. Elias simply pressed the intercom. Security will escort Ms. Carter out. Her protests echoed down the hallway as she was removed. Employees watched in stunned silence. Rumors began instantly. Elias returned to his paperwork as if nothing had happened. That evening, Elias arrived home early. Vanessa was still out. Perfect timing. He moved through the house methodically. Important documents packed first. Passports, legal files, personal keepsakes belonging to Caleb. He avoided sentimental objects deliberately. Memories had no strategic value. Caleb watched from the staircase. Are we moving? He asked quietly. Yes. Tonight. Elias nodded. Caleb hesitated. Mom coming? A brief silence followed. No. The boy absorbed the answer without argument. Within hours, suitcases waited near the door. Elias performed one final walkthrough of the house. The home he had built believing loyalty lived inside its walls. He left divorce papers neatly arranged on the dining table. Beside them sat financial notices already triggered by his earlier actions. Account freezes, authorization removals, Legal separation filings. Clear. Final. Irreversible. You turn off the lights. Vanessa returned shortly after 9. She entered humming softly, dropping her purse onto the counter. Elias? She called casually. No answer. The silence felt strange. Her smile faded as she noticed the darkened rooms. Then she saw the documents. She approached slowly. Read the first page. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to panic. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Bank alerts. Payment failures. Car declines. Account restrictions. Her hands trembled as realization dawned. Elias? She whispered again, louder now. The house answered only with emptiness. Upstairs closets stood half empty. Caleb's room cleared. Suitcases gone. Family photographs missing. Her husband and son had vanished. Elias and Caleb are gone. The war has begun. Chapter 3, Disappearance. The city disappeared behind them before sunrise. Elias drove through the empty highway lanes with steady hands. The world outside painted in shades of gray dawn. The silence inside the car felt heavier than exhaustion. Caleb slept in the passenger seat, his head tilted toward the window, unaware of how completely his life had changed overnight. Elias glanced at him briefly before returning his attention to the road. There would be no turning back. He had chosen disappearance, not escape. Every mile placed distance between them and betrayal, but distance alone wasn't safety. Elias understood systems, patterns, and human behavior. People were found because they made emotional mistakes. He would not make any. By the time Caleb woke, they were already crossing state lines. Dad, Caleb murmured, blinking. Where are we? Elias handed him a bottle of water. Somewhere new. Caleb looked around at unfamiliar highways stretching endlessly ahead. Are we hiding? Elias considered the question carefully. Yes, he said finally. But we're also starting over. The boy nodded slowly, accepting more than most children his age could understand. Their first stop was not a hotel. Hotels required identification, records, cameras, traces. Instead, Elias parked outside a small private rental office he had arranged hours earlier using an intermediary service paid in advance. A middle-aged woman met them outside, holding a folder. You must be Mr. Reed, she said politely. Elias gave a small nod. The name felt foreign. Nathan Reed. Temporary driver's licenses rested inside his jacket pocket, obtained through legal identity transition services often used by high-level witnesses and corporate relocation clients. Everything had been arranged carefully weeks before, long before Vanessa realized anything was wrong. Preparation had always been Elias's greatest strength. The woman handed him keys. Month-to-month lease. Utilities included. Thank you. She smiled warmly at Caleb. Welcome to Portland. Portland, Maine greeted them with cold ocean air and quiet streets far removed from corporate skylines and luxury neighborhoods. Their apartment overlooked a modest harbor dotted with fishing boats rather than glass towers. It was small. 2 bedrooms. Plain furniture. No history attached to it. Caleb walked inside slowly. This is different. Elias set their bags down. Different could be good. The boy wandered toward the window, watching seagulls circle above the water. Do I still call you Dad? Caleb asked suddenly. Elias paused. Yes, he said softly. Always. Caleb hesitated again. But what's my name now? Elias knelt so they were eye level. For now, you're Ethan. Caleb repeated it quietly. Ethan, not excitement. Acceptance. Children adapted faster than adults when survival required it. The next several days unfolded with strict discipline. Elias dismantled their former existence piece by piece. Old phones were destroyed and discarded across separate locations. Email accounts deleted permanently. Cloud storage wiped. Financial access rerouted through layered accounts designed to appear ordinary rather than wealthy. He purchased secondhand furniture using cash equivalents. Registered Ethan at a local school under transfer documentation prepared in advance. Each action removed another thread connecting them to Elias Blackwood. At night, Elias worked from a small desk facing the harbor, reviewing architectural freelance contracts under his new name. Nathan Reed became a quiet consultant, rather than an industry giant. Smaller projects, anonymous clients, no publicity, no interviews, no recognition. Exactly as intended. One evening, Ethan sat across from him at the kitchen table doing homework. "Do you miss it?" the boy asked. Elias looked up. "Miss what?" "Our old house." The question lingered. "I miss what I thought it was," Elias answered honestly. Ethan nodded, as if that made perfect sense. After a moment, he added, "Mom's probably really mad." Elias didn't respond immediately. Anger wasn't what concerned him. Desperation was. "She'll be busy," Elias said calmly. Hundreds of miles away, Vanessa Blackwood stood inside Elias's former executive office. Her office now. Sunlight streamed across the desk she had once admired from the visitor's chair. Marcus leaned against the window, smiling confidently. "We did it," he said. "The board signed temporary authority this morning." Vanessa exhaled slowly, still adjusting to the sudden shift of power. Elias's disappearance had shocked everyone. Investors demanded explanations, but Marcus handled meetings smoothly, presenting the situation as a personal breakdown. Stress leave, Marcus had called it. Sympathy replaced suspicion. For now, Vanessa ran her fingers across the polished desk surface. "This feels strange." Marcus laughed softly. "You'll get used to it." He stepped closer, wrapping an arm around her waist. "No more hiding," he whispered. She smiled, allowing herself relief for the first time in months. Lydia entered moments later, carrying champagne bottles. "To new beginnings," she announced proudly. Glasses clinked. Laughter filled the office Elias once controlled. They celebrated promotion, freedom, and victory, convinced the hardest obstacle had removed himself voluntarily. None of them noticed the unanswered emails piling up, or the delayed contractor payments, or clients quietly requesting reassurances Elias alone used to provide. Marcus waved away early concerns. Transition period, he assured staff. Perfectly normal. Vanessa believed him. They all did. Back in Portland, Elias stood on the pier watching waves crash against wooden posts. Cold wind carried the scent of salt and distance. His phone displayed market reports and internal company updates accessed through anonymous monitoring channels. Project delays, contract renegotiations, employee resignations beginning quietly, predictable outcomes. Leadership gaps never stayed hidden long. Ethan approached, hands shoved into his jacket pockets. "Can we get pizza tonight?" he asked hopefully. Elias allowed himself a faint smile. "Yes." They walked back toward the apartment together, blending effortlessly into the lives of strangers passing by. No one recognized the man who once dominated architectural headlines. No one searched for Nathan Reed. Exactly as planned. Behind them, far away, Vanessa and Marcus continued celebrating their victory, unaware that the structure they believed they now controlled had already begun weakening at its foundations. Meanwhile, Vanessa and Marcus celebrate temporary victory as they take control of the company, unaware that its foundations are already collapsing. Chapter 4: Collapse in Slow Motion. Success, Vanessa quickly learned, was much heavier when Elias Blackwood was no longer carrying it. At first, everything appeared manageable. The board accepted Marcus's explanation that Elias had taken indefinite personal leave. Investors expressed concern but remained patient. Staff members continued reporting to work. Projects moved forward, and the company logo still carried enough reputation to silence early doubts. For nearly 2 weeks, Blackwood Architectural Group functioned on momentum alone. Momentum Elias had built over decades. Vanessa sat behind the executive desk each morning, adjusting to the authority she once envied. Assistants now waited for her approval. Department heads requested her decisions. Her signature finalized contracts worth millions. Yet something invisible had changed. Emails multiplied faster than she could answer them. Questions arrived that Marcus brushed aside with confidence. "It's just transition stress," he assured her repeatedly. "Companies go through this all the time." Vanessa wanted to believe him, so she did. The first problem arrived quietly. A longtime client requested a private meeting. Mr. Halpern had worked exclusively with Elias for 12 years. His hotel development projects alone accounted for nearly 15% of company revenue. Vanessa greeted him warmly in the conference room. "Mr. Halpern, it's good to see you." The older man smiled politely, but didn't sit immediately. "I was hoping to speak with Elias." Vanessa maintained composure. "He's unavailable at the moment, but Marcus and I are fully handling operations." Halpern exchanged a brief glance with Marcus before finally sitting. "Yes, about that." He slid a document across the table. "We've decided to pause Phase 2 construction." Vanessa frowned. "Pause. Our investors feel more comfortable waiting until Mr. Blackwood returns." Marcus leaned forward smoothly. "We assure you nothing has changed." Halpern's expression remained firm. "Everything has changed." The meeting ended 15 minutes later. Their first major contract withdrawal. Within days, others followed. Emails arrived citing restructuring, budget reassessment, and leadership uncertainty. Projects Elias personally supervised began stalling. Design teams requested approvals Vanessa didn't fully understand. Engineers asked technical questions Marcus avoided answering. Deadlines slipped. Confusion spread through departments accustomed to Elias's decisive leadership. One afternoon, senior architect Daniel Ruiz stood inside Vanessa's office holding resignation papers. "You're leaving?" she asked, stunned. Daniel sighed heavily. "With respect, Mrs. Blackwood, Elias ran this company. Clients trusted him, not the brand. We can rebuild that trust." He shook his head. 3 projects don't even have finalized structural approval. That never happened before. Marcus interrupted sharply. "You're overreacting." Daniel met his gaze calmly. "No, I'm protecting my license." He placed the resignation letter on the desk and walked out. By the end of the week, for more senior employees followed. Meanwhile, Lydia Carter's situation deteriorated rapidly. She stormed into Vanessa's house one evening, slamming the door behind her. "This is insane," Lydia shouted. "My card stopped working everywhere." Vanessa stood from the couch. "What do you mean stopped working?" "Declined. All of them." Marcus exchanged a quiet glance with Vanessa. Lydia paced furiously. "An HR locked me out completely. Elias fired me without warning." Vanessa's confusion turned to anger. "He wouldn't do that without reason." Lydia froze briefly before recovering. "Well, he did." Reality began settling uncomfortably. Without Lydia's salary, and without Elias's financial support quietly covering family expenses, problems spread quickly. Vanessa's parents called days later. Mortgage payments failed. Insurance policies lapsed. Credit accounts froze one after another. "What's happening to us?" her mother asked desperately over the phone. Vanessa had no answer. Inside the company, financial strain worsened. Invoices remained unpaid longer than usual. Suppliers demanded confirmation guarantees Elias previously handled personally. Accounting meetings stretched into tense arguments. The chief financial officer approached Marcus privately. "We have liquidity concerns," she warned. "Cash flow projections are unstable." Marcus frowned. "That's impossible." "It isn't," she replied, sliding spreadsheets forward. Several debt obligations were recently acquired by outside entities. Vanessa scanned the documents helplessly. "Who bought them?" The CFO shook her head. "Unknown holding companies." Marcus dismissed the concern. Corporate restructuring happens all the time. But uncertainty lingered. Then came the first lawsuit. A commercial developer filed legal action over design delays causing construction losses. Vanessa stared at the legal notice in disbelief. This never happened before. Marcus rubbed his temples. They're exploiting Elias's absence. But more notices followed. Contract disputes, penalty claims, regulatory complaints. Problems Elias once resolved quietly now escalated publicly. Staff morale collapsed alongside confidence. Whispers spread through office corridors. Something's wrong. The company isn't stable. Elias was the real leader. Vanessa began arriving earlier and leaving later, exhaustion replacing excitement. One evening she sat alone in the dark office, staring at Elias's empty chair across the room. For the first time, doubt crept in. Had they underestimated him? Far away in Portland, Elias sat at a small desk overlooking the harbor. Nathan Reed's modest apartment remained silent, except for waves striking the docks outside. Multiple screens displayed financial updates, anonymous reports, corporate filings, debt movements. He observed calmly as another notification appeared. Client withdrawal confirmed. Elias leaned back slightly. Predictable. Organizations built around competence rarely survived its removal. Ethan entered carrying homework. Nathan? Elias smiled faintly. Either works at home. Can you help with this math problem? He moved beside his son, explaining equations patiently, while another alert flashed quietly on a screen behind them. Employee resignation filed. Outside, snow began falling across Portland streets. Inside, Elias remained composed. No celebration crossed his face. Only observation. Elsewhere, creditors scheduled urgent meetings. Collection agencies initiated contact. Financial pressure tightened slowly but relentlessly around Vanessa's world. Every system Elias once stabilized now unraveled piece by piece. He watched without interference. Elias watches everything unfold from afar. Chapter 5: The Architect of Revenge. Winter settled fully over Portland, wrapping the harbor city in cold silence. To outsiders, Nathan Reed lived an ordinary life. He woke early, walked Ethan to school, completed modest architectural consulting work, bought groceries from the same corner market, and exchanged polite greetings with neighbors who knew nothing about the man he once was. Routine created invisibility, and invisibility created freedom. But every night, after Ethan fell asleep, Nathan Reed disappeared, and Elias Blackwood returned. The small desk facing the apartment window transformed into a command center illuminated by multiple laptop screens. Financial databases, corporate filings, encrypted archives, and industry reports filled the glow of the room. Elias worked methodically, not emotionally. Revenge fueled by anger burned quickly. Revenge built on structure endured. The first phase required understanding exactly how Vanessa and Marcus intended to remove him. Elias accessed archive company backups he alone had quietly duplicated months earlier. As founder, he had insisted on redundant off-site storage systems, a precaution no one questioned at the time. Now, those safeguards became weapons. Lines of financial data scrolled endlessly across his screen. Invoices, vendor contracts, internal approvals, expense authorizations. At first glance, nothing appeared unusual. Marcus had always understood how to appear legitimate. But Elias understood architecture, and corruption followed patterns no different from flawed structural design. Stress always revealed weakness. 3 nights later, he found the first fracture. An overseas subcontractor billing nearly double standard rates. Approved personally by Marcus. Elias frowned slightly. He opened linked payments. Commission transfers followed shortly afterward into consulting accounts disguised under unrelated corporate names. Kickbacks, cleanly hidden, carefully timed. He continued digging. Another project revealed unauthorized design reuse. Architectural plans originally created by junior staff quietly resold to external developers. Signatures approving release authorization belonged to Vanessa. Elias leaned back slowly. She hadn't merely betrayed him emotionally. She had participated professionally. A long silence filled the room. Then he resumed working. Weeks passed. Evidence accumulated steadily. Fraudulent billing structures, supplier manipulation, licensing violations, illegal cost diversions masked within expansion budgets. Marcus had grown bold after assuming operational control, believing Elias gone permanently. Without oversight, shortcuts multiplied. Elias documented everything. Each file categorized. Each transaction time-stamped. Each approval chain preserved. He wasn't preparing revenge. He was preparing prosecution. One evening, Ethan entered quietly, rubbing his eyes. "You're working again." Elias minimized screens instantly. "Couldn't sleep?" Ethan shook his head. "You always look different at night." Elias paused. "Different how?" "Serious," Ethan said. "Like you're solving something big." Elias smiled faintly. I am. Is it about Mom? The question lingered heavily. Yes, Elias admitted. Ethan nodded slowly. Are we going back someday? Elias closed the laptop. Not until things are safe. The boy accepted the answer and returned to bed. Elias waited until the bedroom door closed before reopening the files. Safety required completion. The next phase began quietly. Elias contacted financial brokers through encrypted professional channels under Nathan Reed's identity. A video call connected him to a discreet investment intermediary. What kind of acquisition are you interested in, Mr. Reed? The broker asked. Distressed corporate debt, Elias replied calmly. Industry preference? Architecture and construction. The broker nodded. Risk tolerance? Elias's expression didn't change. Hi. Within weeks, Elias began purchasing fragments of Blackwood Architectural Group's growing liabilities. Not directly, never directly. Shell corporations handle transactions. Independent holding firms registered across multiple jurisdictions quietly acquired overdue loans, supplier debt, and secondary credit obligations tied to the company. To outside observers, investors were simply betting on a struggling firm's recovery. Only Elias understood the full pattern. Piece by piece, control shifted. Meanwhile, market pressure intensified naturally. Elias nudged events without ever appearing connected. Anonymous industry inquiries questioned delayed projects. Former clients received subtle reminders about compliance risks. Insurance evaluators requested updated operational reviews. Nothing illegal, nothing traceable, just pressure applied precisely where instability already existed. Marcus responded with aggressive short-term decisions, accepting risky contracts, borrowing against uncertain revenue, approving accelerated timelines the company could no longer sustain. Exactly as Elias predicted, poor leadership collapsed faster under stress. Late one night, Elias reviewed updated financial projections. Debt ratios rising, liquidity shrinking, legal exposure expanding. He opened a secure folder labeled simply. Final structure inside rested months of preparation. Evidence files, ownership maps, debt acquisition confirmations, legal triggers waiting for activation. He studied them carefully, like an architect reviewing blueprints before demolition. Every step followed law, every move defensible, every consequence earned. No shouting confrontation, no reckless revenge, only inevitability. Outside, snow fell steadily against the harbor lights. Elias closed his eyes briefly. He remembered building the company from nothing, sleepless nights, sacrificed weekends, trust placed in people he believed shared his vision. Marcus had exploited ambition. Vanessa had exploited love. Now both faced consequences engineered with the same precision Elias once used to design skyscrapers meant to withstand decades. He reopened his laptop. Another acquisition confirmation appeared. More company debt secured. Another structural support removed. The collapse would not be sudden. It would be slow, controlled, unavoidable. His revenge is precise, legal, patient, and irreversible. Chapter 6. Cracks in the New Life. Spring arrived slowly in Portland, melting the last traces of winter along the harbor streets. Fishing boats returned in greater numbers, tourists began appearing again, and life moved forward with quiet predictability. For Nathan Reed and his son Ethan, routine had become survival. Every morning followed the same pattern. Breakfast at 7, walk to school at 7:30, work during the day, dinner together. No unnecessary conversations with neighbors. No photographs posted online. No past mention allowed. At first, Caleb, now Ethan, adapted remarkably well. Children possessed a resilience adults often underestimated. He learned new classmates' names, adjusted to different teachers, and even joined a small after-school robotics club. But adaptation was not acceptance. Elias noticed the change gradually. Ethan laughed less. He spoke less at dinner. Sometimes Elias would find him staring out the apartment window toward the ocean long after homework should have been finished. One evening, Elias placed 2 plates of pasta on the table. How was school? Fine. Ethan answered automatically. You say that every day. Ethan shrugged. Elias sat across from him. Something bothering you? The boy hesitated before finally speaking. They all have friends already. You'll make friends. I had friends, Ethan muttered quietly. The words lingered between them. Elias understood what wasn't said. I had a life. He chose his response carefully. This situation isn't permanent. When does it end? Elias didn't answer immediately. Soon, he said finally. Ethan nodded, but disappointment remained visible. The following weeks grew harder. School projects required family histories Ethan couldn't explain. Teachers asked about previous schools. Classmates talked about childhood memories tied to places Ethan could never mention again. Isolation settled around him like invisible weight. One afternoon, Elias returned early from grocery shopping and noticed Ethan's bedroom door closed. Unusual during homework hours. Soft voices came from inside. Elias paused. Ethan rarely spoke on calls. He knocked lightly. The voice stopped instantly. A few seconds later, Ethan opened the door, startled. Hey, Elias said calmly. Who were you talking to? No one. Elias raised an eyebrow gently. Ethan looked away. Just someone from robotics. Elias studied him for a moment, but let it pass. Trust mattered. Control too early created rebellion. Still, unease settled quietly in his mind. That night, long after Ethan slept, Elias reviewed network security logs, a habit he maintained since their arrival. His expression hardened. A new connection appeared. An encrypted messaging platform accessed from Ethan's laptop. Outgoing communication. Unregistered contact. Elias opened metadata traces carefully. Minimal information appeared, but one detail stood out. The contact originated from their former city. Elias closed the screen slowly. He did not wake Ethan. Instead, he waited until morning. At breakfast, Elias spoke calmly. Ethan, we need to talk. The boy froze slightly. Did you contact someone from before? Silence confirmed everything. I just wanted to talk to Liam, Ethan said defensively. He's my best friend. Elias kept his voice steady. I told you we couldn't do that. I didn't tell him where we are. That doesn't matter. Frustration spilled over. You don't understand. I lost everything overnight. Elias absorbed the words without reacting. Ethan's eyes filled with anger and sadness. I just wanted someone who knows me. The honesty struck deeper than defiance. Elias softened slightly. I do understand. Then why are we hiding like criminals? Because betrayal had consequences too dangerous to explain fully. Because powerful people searched when money and pride were threatened. Because mistakes could destroy them. But Elias only said, some people shouldn't find us yet. Ethan looked down, ashamed. I'm sorry. Elias nodded. No more contact. Promise me. I promise. Yet Elias knew damage might already exist. Digital traces rarely disappeared completely. Hundreds of miles away, Vanessa Blackwood slammed her phone onto Marcus's desk. He vanished, she snapped. No banking activity. No property records. Nothing. Marcus rubbed his forehead. People don't disappear like that. Well, Elias did. Months of financial pressure had stripped away the confidence she once carried. Lawsuits continued mounting, creditors called daily, and investors demanded leadership stability she struggled to provide. Desperation replaced anger. I'm hiring someone, she said firmly. Marcus looked up. A lawyer? No, a private investigator. 2 days later, Vanessa sat across from a gray-haired investigator named Richard Cole. I want you to find my husband. Cole studied her carefully. Missing voluntarily? Yes. Legal concerns? Divorce proceedings, she admitted. But I need his location. Cole nodded slowly. People leave patterns. Eventually they slip. Vanessa leaned forward. He took my son. That detail secured the investigator's interest immediately. I'll start with digital movement, Cole said. School transfers, online activity, financial shadows. Vanessa exhaled, hope flickering again. For the first time since Elias disappeared, she felt control returning. In Portland, Elias received confirmation of his fear 3 nights later. An automated alert flashed across his monitoring system. External inquiry detected. Someone had accessed archived education transfer databases connected indirectly to Ethan's enrollment. Not confirmation, But proximity. Elias's jaw tightened. He traced the inquiry source through layered routing networks. Private investigation firm. Professional. Persistent. He leaned back slowly, mind already calculating timelines. Ethan's brief online contact had created a ripple someone skilled enough could follow. Hiding indefinitely was no longer realistic. The margin of safety was shrinking. From the living room, Ethan's laughter drifted faintly as he watched television, innocent, unaware of how fragile their anonymity had become. Elias watched him quietly from the doorway. Every decision now carried greater risk. Running longer would only increase exposure. The plan he'd spent months preparing could no longer wait. Elias returned to his desk and opened the secured folder containing final legal preparations. His reflection stared back from the dark screen, calm, resolved, finished with hiding. Elias realizes hiding forever is impossible. The final phase must begin. Chapter 7, Desperation. The collapse did not happen all at once. It arrived in notices. Emails marked urgent. Phone calls ignored too long. Letters stamped in red ink. Vanessa Blackwood learned that financial ruin rarely came with dramatic explosions. Instead, it tightened slowly, quietly, until breathing itself felt difficult. She sat inside the executive office that once symbolized victory, staring at yet another notification flashing across her computer screen. Loan default warning, immediate action required. Her hands trembled slightly as she reread the message. Marcus paced behind her desk, running both hands through his hair. "This is temporary," he muttered. "We just need liquidity." "You said that last month," Vanessa replied sharply. "And I was right, until clients started panicking." "They're not panicking," she snapped. "They're leaving." Another email arrived. Then another. Contract termination. Project suspension. Payment demand. Each one chipped away at the illusion that they still controlled anything. The board meeting that afternoon turned hostile. Senior investors filled the conference room, expressions cold and impatient. One of them, Mr. Hargrove, spoke first. "We invested in Elias Blackwood's leadership," he said bluntly. "Not uncertainty." Marcus leaned forward confidently. "The company remains stable. Stable companies don't face 3 lawsuits in 1 quarter." Another investor interrupted. Vanessa felt heat rise to her face. "These legal issues are exaggerated," she insisted. "We're resolving them." Hargrove slid documents across the table. "Construction delays cost our partners millions. Insurance providers are questioning compliance standards." Marcus's confidence faltered for the first time. "We just need time." The investors exchanged looks. "You've had time," Hargrove replied. "What you don't have anymore is credibility." The meeting ended with funding frozen. When the doors closed, Vanessa sank into her chair. "They don't trust us." Marcus slammed his fist lightly against the table. "They'll come back once we stabilize cash flow." But even he no longer sounded convinced. The lawsuits multiplied rapidly. Developers claimed breach of contract. Suppliers demanded unpaid balances. Former employees filed complaints regarding unpaid bonuses and licensing violations. Legal bills alone began draining what little remained of company reserves. The finance department delivered weekly reports that grew worse each time. "We cannot meet payroll next month," the CFO admitted during one emergency meeting. Silence followed. Vanessa stared at the spreadsheet numbers as though they belonged to someone else's company. "This isn't possible," she whispered. But it was. At home, reality struck harder. Vanessa's mother called late one evening, crying. "They're taking the house." Vanessa sat upright. "What?" "The bank says payments stopped months ago." Vanessa's stomach dropped. Elias had always handled extended family finances quietly, mortgage assistance, insurance coverage, investment management. All gone. "We'll fix it," Vanessa promised automatically, but she no longer knew how. Her father's retirement savings had been tied to investment accounts Elias managed. Those accounts were inaccessible now. Her younger brother's business credit collapsed after shared guarantees disappeared. One by one, financial supports vanished like pulled threads unraveling an entire fabric. Lydia arrived at Vanessa's apartment looking exhausted. Gone was her confident arrogance. Her hair was unkempt, makeup uneven, anxiety obvious. "I got eviction notice," she said without greeting. Vanessa stared at her. "Already? I haven't worked in months." Lydia snapped. "Nobody hires someone fired for executive misconduct. Do you know how that looks?" Marcus entered from the kitchen, irritation clear. "This isn't helping." Lydia turned on him immediately. "You said everything would be fine. You said Elias wouldn't fight back." Marcus's jaw tightened. "We didn't expect him to disappear." "Well, he did," she shouted. "And now we're all drowning." Silence filled the room. For the first time, none of them blamed Elias aloud, because deep down they understood. He wasn't reacting emotionally. He was dismantling them. Weeks later, Marcus received another devastating call. He ended it slowly before looking at Vanessa. The bank rejected restructuring. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "What does that mean?" "It means," he hesitated, "we're insolvent." The word settled heavily between them. Bankruptcy loomed. Professional ruin followed closely behind. News articles began appearing online questioning leadership failures at Blackwood Architectural Group. Industry forums speculated openly. Former clients publicly distanced themselves. Marcus's reputation collapsed first. Vanessa's followed quickly. Phone calls stopped. Invitations disappeared. Colleagues avoided association. The empire they thought they inherited turned into public failure, bearing their names. 3 days later, Richard Cole returned with new information. Vanessa sat across from him anxiously. "You found something?" Cole nodded. "Digital trace connected to your son." Her breath caught. "Where?" "It's indirect," he cautioned. "But recent educational database activity points toward Maine." "Maine," Marcus repeated. Cole slid a file forward. "Specifically Portland." Vanessa's heart pounded violently. After months of uncertainty, Elias was suddenly real again. Reachable. Human. Not vanished. She stood immediately. "We're going." Marcus frowned. "You think he'll even see us?" "He has to," she insisted. "He built everything. He won't let it die." Lydia laughed bitterly from the corner. "You really think he'll help after what happened?" Vanessa ignored her. Hope, desperate and fragile, replaced fear. Elias had always solved impossible problems. He always protected the company, protected the family. He would fix this too. He had to. The flight to Portland felt endless. Vanessa stared out the airplane window while Marcus reviewed financial documents that no longer offered solutions. Neither spoke much. Both understood the truth they refused to say aloud. They were no longer traveling from strength. They were begging. When the plane landed, cold coastal air greeted them as reality settled heavily in their chests. Somewhere in this unfamiliar city lived the man whose absence destroyed everything. Their last chance. They stepped outside the airport together, exhaustion and desperation replacing former confidence. Desperate, they follow investigative leads that finally point toward Portland. They travel there hoping Elias will save them. Chapter 8, The Confrontation. Portland's harbor wind carried a sharp chill that morning, but Elias Blackwood barely noticed it. He had known they were coming. The investigators' digital footprint had grown increasingly obvious over the past week. Hotel reservations traced through corporate cards. Rental vehicle searches. Local inquiries made too confidently. Vanessa never understood subtlety when desperation took hold. Elias stood outside a small waterfront cafe, hands resting calmly in his coat pockets as fishing boats rocked gently against the docks. Behind him, Ethan Caleb sat inside finishing homework, unaware that the past had finally caught up with them. A black rental car pulled to the curb. Elias didn't move. Vanessa stepped out first. For a moment, neither spoke. Months apart transformed her. The confidence she once carried had faded beneath exhaustion. Dark circles framed her eyes, and tension replaced elegance. Marcus exited from a driver's side seconds later, his expression tight, pride barely masking anxiety. Vanessa's voice broke first. Elias, hearing his real name spoken aloud again, felt strangely distant. He nodded politely. "Vanessa." No warmth. No anger, just acknowledgement. Her eyes searched his face desperately. You're really here. I never wasn't. She took a cautious step forward. You disappeared. You forced that outcome. Marcus crossed his arms. We didn't come here to argue. Elias glanced at him briefly. Then you came for the wrong reason. Inside the cafe, Ethan looked up as the door opened. Recognition hit instantly. Mom! Vanessa's composure shattered. She rushed toward him, kneeling and pulling him into an embrace. Oh my God, Caleb, I missed you so much. The boy stiffened slightly before returning the hug out of instinct rather than comfort. Marcus hovered awkwardly nearby. Elias remained standing, watching silently. Vanessa pulled back, holding Caleb's face. Why didn't you call me? I was worried sick. Caleb glanced toward his father before answering carefully. We had to leave. Emotion flashed across Vanessa's face, guilt quickly replaced by urgency. We can fix everything now, she said, standing and turning toward Elias. That's why we're here. Elias gestured toward a table. Sit. They obeyed. The tension between them felt heavier than any argument. Vanessa leaned forward immediately. I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Elias said calmly. Her voice trembled, then hurt, betrayed. Whatever you want to call it, I'm sorry. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, but stayed silent. Vanessa continued quickly, words rushing out. It was a mistake. Things got complicated. You were always working, always distant. Elias raised a hand gently. Stop. She froze. Don't rewrite history to comfort yourself. Tears filled her eyes. I never meant for things to go this far. You planned my removal from my company. Her silence confirmed it. You prepared another home. Elias continued evenly. You involved your sister. You discussed replacing me before ending our marriage. Marcus finally spoke. Business decisions happen. Elias turned toward him slowly. You were my partner. Marcus's jaw tightened. We built that company together. No, Elias replied quietly. I built it. I trusted you inside it. The words landed harder than shouting. Vanessa reached across the table desperately. Please, Elias. The company is collapsing. Lawsuits everywhere, investors pulling out. We can't stabilize it without you. There it was. The real reason. Not love. Not family. Survival. You want rescue, Elias said. We want to rebuild, she corrected quickly. For Caleb. For us. Marcus leaned forward. Come back as partner again. We'll restore your authority. Elias almost smiled. You're offering me my own life. Marcus's patience snapped. This helps everyone. No, Elias said calmly. It helps you escape consequences. Silence followed. Vanessa's voice softened dangerously, familiar emotional manipulation returning. We were happy once, she whispered. Don't throw away our family. Elias met her gaze steadily. You threw it away. Tears slipped down her cheeks. We can start over. Elias shook his head. No, the rejection ignited Marcus's temper. You're being vindictive, he snapped. People make mistakes. You committed fraud, Elias replied calmly. Marcus froze. Vanessa looked between them, confused. Elias continued quietly. Kickbacks. Design theft. Illegal approvals. Marcus's confidence faltered. You don't know what you're talking about. Elias said nothing, which frightened Marcus more. Vanessa turned back desperately. At least come home. Caleb needs both parents. Before Elias could respond, Caleb stood. The sudden movement silenced everyone. He looked at his mother, eyes conflicted but clear. Mom, why did you lie to Dad? Vanessa blinked. Sweetheart, I saw messages, Caleb said quietly. You were planning to leave before he even knew. Her face drained of color. I love you, she said quickly. I know, Caleb replied. But Dad didn't do anything wrong. The cafe felt unbearably quiet. Caleb stepped closer to Elias. I'm staying with him. Vanessa's breath caught. Caleb, he protected me, the boy continued. You didn't. The words shattered something final. Vanessa covered her mouth, tears falling freely now. Marcus looked away, uncomfortable witnessing the moment. Elias rested a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. No triumph crossed his face, only acceptance. The emotional break became permanent. Chapter 9. The trap closes. Elias Blackwood stood in the small office of his Portland apartment, the harbor wind rattling the window panes behind him. Months of preparation had brought them to this precise moment. Every action he had taken, every move he had orchestrated in silence, now converged into a single, unyielding strike. Vanessa sat across from him in a modest chair, eyes swollen from days of stress and sleepless nights. Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed, face taut with disbelief. Neither of them spoke. The tension filled the room like static electricity. Caleb, calm and watchful, lingered by the doorway, silently observing the adults. Elias's tone was measured, clinical. "You believed you could rebuild, didn't you? You thought I would remain in hiding forever, that you could erase me from the company, from your life, without consequence." Vanessa's lips trembled. "Elias, please, he raised a hand. "Do not speak." He moved to the desk and picked up a thick binder, the weight of it symbolic, not only physically, but of every document, every email, every ledger entry meticulously collected. "You don't understand," Marcus interjected. "We can fix this. I can manage. You can manage nothing," Elias said sharply, turning toward him. His calm demeanor made the statement even colder. "I've anticipated every decision, every shortcut you took, every fraudulent invoice you approved, every back-channel payment. Every step you thought would be hidden, I documented." Vanessa gasped, clutching the edge of the chair. "Evidence you can't." Elias opened the binder with slow precision. "I can, and I have. Every illicit transaction, every misappropriation, every falsified approval, every kickback, every stolen design, all of it." He began laying documents across the small table. Contracts signed under pseudonyms, bank transfers routed through shell corporations, emails revealing the collusion, invoices that proved kickbacks and falsified budgets. The pile was overwhelming. Marcus's face paled as he leaned in to examine the evidence. This can't be real. We never. It's just bookkeeping errors." Elias shook his head. "Errors you were careless enough to make, yes. But intentional, documented, and now legally undeniable." Vanessa's voice cracked. "Please, there has to be a way to fix this. We can amend, we can." Elias's gaze was icy. "No, there is no amendment. You took from me what I built, betrayed my trust, my family, my life. I've acted within the law every step of the way. Now the law acts through me." With that, he reached for a secure laptop, connected to a verified, encrypted network. Emails and legal submissions were sent simultaneously. Fraud documentation to federal authorities. Detailed reports to architectural ethics boards. Summaries and evidence to investigative journalists known for exposing corporate misconduct. The notifications pinged one after another. The legal web, carefully prepared, began to wrap around them instantly. Vanessa's hand trembled as she tried to reach for the binder, as if she could erase the evidence physically. "You can't. This is impossible." Elias didn't flinch. "Impossible is what you thought I was. I was never gone. I was preparing." Marcus, now visibly shaking, spoke through gritted teeth. We need to talk to lawyers. We can negotiate." Elias's hand rested calmly on the desk. "There is no negotiation. You will sign confessions under legal supervision, acknowledging the fraud and misconduct. You will face the consequences of every action you took while believing I was absent." Vanessa stumbled back, tears streaming. "No, you can't do this. You can't. You underestimated me," Elias said, voice steady, cutting through her panic. "Every assumption you made, every path you thought would save you, I anticipated." Outside, Caleb watched silently, sensing the weight of finality. Elias moved toward him briefly, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Stay calm. Observe. Justice, not vengeance, will prevail." Vanessa sank into the chair, covering her face. I thought we could rebuild, for Caleb, for us, for everything." Elias's eyes softened slightly, only toward his son. "You can rebuild your own life, not at the expense of others. Not at mine." Marcus's attempts at defiance crumbled as the phone rang. Federal investigators, alerted by Elias's submissions, We're confirming receipt. The tone of authority on the other end left no room for bargaining. What happens now? Vanessa whispered, voice barely audible. Now, Elias said, the law takes its course, and every move you made to betray me will be accounted for. Marcus's knees weakened, and he sank into a chair. You can't ruin us. We built the company. How can you? I built the company. You attempted to steal it, Elias replied. Every misstep, every shortcut, every act of deception you believed hidden is now your undoing. Vanessa's tears fell freely. Please, we can cooperate. We'll sign whatever you want. Just don't destroy everything. Elias's voice was resolute. You cannot erase the consequences of betrayal. This is not destruction. This is accountability. Outside, a car pulled up quietly, and an unmarked vehicle from the investigative team parked near the cafe. Within minutes, uniformed officers and legal representatives arrived, carrying official summons and warrants. Vanessa and Marcus looked at each other in terror as Elias gestured toward the documents and electronic evidence. You see, every step you took to rebuild, to reclaim what you thought was yours, was anticipated, recorded, and now exposed. The law will decide your fate. There is no escape. Marcus's face turned pale. No one. The lead investigator handed a folder to Elias. All evidence verified. We can proceed immediately. Elias nodded once, turning toward Vanessa and Marcus. Everything you did, everything you try to hide, is now public and legally undeniable. Your careers, your freedom, your reputation, all will collapse. Vanessa sank back in the chair, burying her face in her hands. Marcus slumped against the wall, disbelief written in every line of his body. Elias exhaled quietly. You believed yourselves clever, that I would remain hidden forever, that I would allow your betrayal to go unpunished. But I never disappeared for safety alone. I disappeared to ensure accountability. And now, he let the weight of the words settle. Now, the trap closes. The investigators stepped forward, ready to take statements, collect confessions, and begin the legal process. The press, already alerted by authorized releases, prepared to publish the details of months of fraud, kickbacks, and mismanagement. Vanessa and Marcus realized, too late, that every plan they executed, every deception they believed secret, had been anticipated, traced, and neutralized. Their careers, their freedom, their names, all collapsing overnight. Arrests and legal consequences followed. Chapter 10, After Revenge. Spring had finally returned to Portland. The gray skies had cleared, leaving crisp air and sunlight reflecting off the harbor waters. Seagulls drifted overhead, their cries echoing against the quiet streets. For the first time in months, the city seemed calm, almost ordinary. But inside Nathan Reed's modest apartment, the sense of normalcy was deeper than the season. It was earned. Elias Blackwood sat at the small kitchen table, the morning sunlight warming his face. The documents and screens that had dominated his life for so long were gone, replaced by a simple cup of coffee and the soft sound of his son stirring in the next room. The chaos of betrayal, manipulation, and legal warfare had ended. He exhaled slowly, letting himself feel the weight of it, not the thrill of victory, but the quiet satisfaction of closure. Caleb, now fully comfortable reclaiming his true name, emerged from the bedroom, hair tousled and eyes bright despite a restless night. "Morning, Dad," he said, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "Morning, Caleb," Elias replied, standing to pull him into a firm, comforting hug. The embrace lingered longer than usual. It was a reassurance, a promise that nothing could break them again. "Do you think they'll be okay?" Caleb asked quietly. Elias shook his head. "Not everyone gets a second chance, son." Vanessa and Marcus made their choices. Caleb's brow furrowed. "But does that mean they're in trouble?" "Yes," Elias said carefully. "The law will handle that. Justice doesn't always look pretty, but it works when the process is followed." He saw the boy's eyes cloud with unease. "You don't need to worry about them. Not anymore. That's not our life." The media storm that followed the legal filings have been intense but precise. Investigative journalists published detailed accounts of the fraud, backed by court documents, and the confessions Marcus and Vanessa were forced to sign. Professional boards revoked licenses. Developers who had suffered financial losses were compensated through settlements orchestrated by Elias, ensuring the innocent were made whole. One afternoon, Elias received a brief call from an attorney. All settlements processed. The courts have accepted your submissions. The companies that were harmed have been compensated. Elias set the phone down and closed his eyes for a moment. Months of careful planning, patience, and restraint had led to this point. He could have gloated, but there was no thrill in the triumph, only the quiet knowledge that the past had been righted. Outside, Caleb practiced riding his bike along the cobbled streets near the harbor. Elias followed slowly, walking beside him, hands in his pockets, watching the boy regain the freedom and innocence that had been stolen. "You're getting faster," Elias remarked. Caleb laughed. "I'm going to be the fastest kid in Portland." "Just remember to watch the road," Elias said, "and always be aware of who's around you." Caleb rolled his eyes. "Dad, I'm a pro now." Elias smiled, a small, private joy. The simplicity of these moments, the laughter, the sunlight, the sense of safety, was a stark contrast to the months of tension and plotting that had consumed them. In the weeks following the legal resolution, Elias began focusing on rebuilding not only his life, but the lives of those affected by the betrayal. He reached out to architects whose projects had been disrupted by Marcus and Vanessa's mismanagement. Compensation settlements were distributed, and Elias personally contacted each one. One such architect, an elderly man named Thomas Granger, shook Elias's hand firmly. "You've done more than anyone could have expected," he said. "My team can work again without fear." Elias nodded. It was the right thing to do. People shouldn't suffer for others' greed. Thomas's eyes lingered on him. "I don't know if I could have stayed as calm as you did." Elias's lips tightened slightly. Calm isn't about patience. It's about focus. Always focus on what matters. In addition to restitution, Elias began mentoring young architects and students. Evening classes and workshops replaced the high-stakes boardrooms of his previous life. In these sessions, he shared not only technical skills, but lessons on integrity, ethics, and leadership. "You'll face people who try to take advantage of your trust," he told a roomful of aspiring architects one evening. "Your talent can protect your career, but your judgment protects your life. Never underestimate the importance of both." Questions came fast. How do you know whom to trust? Elias smiled faintly. Experience teaches you. But if you make a mistake, make it once and learn from it. Never let betrayal shape your fear. It should shape your discernment. Evenings were quieter, shared with Caleb at home. They cooked together, played chess, and took long walks along the harbor. No longer were there conversations about hiding or escape. They discussed dreams, plans, and small victories. "Do you ever miss it?" Caleb asked one night as they walked past the boats, the setting sun reflecting in the water. Elias considered the question. "The old life. Yeah, our house, the company, everything before, I won't lie," Elias admitted. "I do, but I also know that the past isn't what defines us anymore. Protecting you, helping those who were harmed, building something new, that defines us now." Caleb smiled. "Then I'm glad we stayed together." Elias put an arm around his son's shoulders. "Me too. That's what matters." In the weeks and months that followed, their lives grew steadier. Elias no longer had to monitor shadow networks or worry about investigation leaks. Caleb's laughter returned fully, unburdened by secrecy. Nathan Reed had faded completely. Elias Blackwood had reclaimed himself, not with fury or vengeance, but with purpose. Even Vanessa and Marcus were fading from his world. They faced prosecution, financial ruin, and public disgrace. Elias monitored only from a distance, confirming their consequences without interference. He felt no glee, only the satisfaction of justice completed. He realized something crucial. Revenge had ended the past, but it could never define the future. One Sunday morning, Elias and Caleb sat on a worn wooden bench overlooking the harbor. Seagulls wheeled overhead, and the smell of salt water filled the air. Caleb said thoughtfully, I think this is the happiest I've been in a long time. Elias nodded. It's a new beginning. Not perfect, but ours. Caleb looked up at him, eyes bright with curiosity. Do you think we'll ever go back? Elias considered the question carefully. Some things are best left behind, but some lessons, those we carry forward. He leaned back, breathing deeply. The breeze lifted his hair, and for the first time in months, the weight of betrayal, planning, and revenge seemed distant. I'm proud of you, Dad, Caleb said. Elias smiled, a rare, unguarded expression. And I'm proud of you, son. Always. As the sun set over the Portland harbor, painting the water in gold and orange, Elias knew that while the past had been settled through justice and calculated patience, the future was his to define. No more revenge. Only rebuilding. Only protection. Only family. The story ended not with destruction, but with quiet strength. And for Elias Blackwood, protecting Caleb, the son who had been his anchor, was the only mission that truly mattered.